got to hold on. You gotta hold on. You gotta hold on.
Good morning, Journey. It's Rick Diamond. I'm your pastor, and I am glad to be with you this morning. Jacob and I are in the building on Woodrow. There's nobody here but us. It's one evening this week as we are preparing this for Sunday morning. And I'm glad when I get video from Christina's in my house. But I wanted to come and be in the space as I'm thinking about and praying about and listening to God and listening to all of us about when we can be back here together. Just thought it'd be nice to have a little of both, right? We're still being safe and sheltering in place. And it's nice to remember this space that we will hopefully be back in soon. It'll be right on time whenever it is. Welcome to this gathering of Journey Imperfect Faith Community. It's a safe space no matter what your political viewpoints are or none. No matter what your place, space, feelings are in this time of unrest in our culture. No matter your skin color, no matter your gender, no matter your sexuality, no matter your politics, no matter your theology, your philosophy, whether you crack open a hard-boiled egg on the big end or the little end, it doesn't matter in this space. You are welcome exactly as you are. And what you bring is important. Find out more about this faith community. If you want to know more about us, go to journeyifc.com. There's all kinds of information there about who we are, what we do, what we believe in, what we're figuring out, what we're trying out, that we believe in spirit, compassion, and justice, and that we want to love God and love the world. You're also invited when you go to that website to hit the give button and donate money and participate in Journey's mission, its vision to reach out to the world and heal the world for God. We feel good about how we use money in our faith community. We are very frugal, and we give the first 10% of our income away to those who need it, close at home, close by here, close to home, and far away. Glad that you're in this space with us this morning, wherever you are sheltering, whatever place that is. The theme for today is Hannah got up. And we're going to look at a story in 1 Samuel in the Jewish scriptures about a woman named Hannah, her husband named Elkanah, and the other wife, Peninnah. That's interesting. Hannah has something she is struggling with, and she's trying to figure out what to do to advocate for herself. And we're going to sit with her, and we're going to sit with us. We're going to sit with each other and with God. I'm going to ring our singing bowl and invite you just to be still for a minute. Welcome.
When I was 10, my mom wouldn't let me wear red nail polish. She said it was too mature, too grown up, and I was too young to wear it. And I thought, that's not fair. I just want to wear red. Why does it have to be mature? Why does it have to be grown up? Why can't it just be red? Why can't I wear something for me? Why does it have to make a statement? I didn't get my answer that day, and I guess I never will. When I tell my mom about this now, she doesn't even remember saying it. Isn't it funny how someone else's forgotten words can be so ingrained in your own brain? And it doesn't matter now, because I wear red nail polish all the time. But now, in the back of my mind, I think, am I making a statement? Am I saying something that I don't want to? I didn't get that answer today, and I guess I never will.
Hi, I am Amy, a fellow journeyer. From the Jewish scriptures, the beginning of the history book called 1 Samuel. There was a man named Elkanah who lived in Ramah, a town in the mountains of Ephraim. He had 2 wives named Hannah and Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had none. Every year, Elkanah left his town of Ramah and took his family up to Shiloh to worship the Lord All-Powerful and to offer sacrifices. Shiloh was where Eli served as a priest to the Lord. When worshipers offered sacrifices, the meat of the animal was butchered. Some of it was burned at an altar to the Lord, and some of it was kept by the worshipers for the celebration. Elkanah always gave a share of the meat to his wife Peninnah and to Peninnah's sons and daughters. But Elkanah always gave a special share of the meat to Hannah, because he loved Hannah and because Elkanah felt sad that the Lord had not given her children. Peninnah, though, would tease Hannah and upset her because Hannah was childless. And every year when they went up to the house of the Lord at Shiloh, Peninnah would upset Hannah until Hannah would cry and not eat anything. Elkanah would say to her, "Hannah, why are you crying, and why won't you eat? Why are you sad? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons?"
Good morning, journeyers. I'm Jacob, and I'm the new summer intern. And I'm going to help us unpack this story a little bit more. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our 3 characters. Our first character in our story is Elkanah. This is the man of the house. He's the man of the family. He's the type of person who wants it all, but also wants to be it all for everyone else. What does this mean? Well, first off, he has 2 wives because the first one couldn't give him children. But also he wants to care for this wife. At the end of our story, he's saying, "Am I not enough for you? I want to be all for you. Am I not better than having sons?" Which we know, Hannah says, of course not. And then we have Peninnah. She is also a victim of this system. She's a person who has been brought into this family to just make kids. She's not the favored one, but she's taken care of. She's brought to the temple with Elkanah, this faithful man. He also brings her along and feeds her and all of the children that she's given him. But Peninnah also is mean to Hannah. She's a person who's been hurt and hurts other people because that's all she knows. And then we have Hannah. She's our last character, and we're going to be talking a lot about her today. Hannah in this story finds her own voice. She's our character who can't have children, is upset about it, is made fun of for it, is beaten down year after year. And although she gets the things, she gets the double portion of food, she gets the love, it's not enough. It's not what she wants. I think we can all kind of see how these characters live out in our own lives. I think all of us can find times when we're like Elkanah and we want to be all for the people we love, but we also want it all. We want all the nice things. We want the children. We want it all. We want to be faithful. But I also think we can be like Peninnah. Sometimes when we're hurt, we hurt other people. We get upset because we have these nice things, but it's not as nice as those things over there. Yes, we can have children, but we're not loved as well as we need to be. And then we have Hannah. And I think there's a lot of people right now that feel like Hannah, feel like their voice isn't being heard, that these injustices around them aren't fair, and they have no idea what to do but to weep and to call out to God. As we go into this service, I ask us to just sit with these characters and meet them in ourselves. And then later we're going to do an activity where we meditate with them and get to know them even more.
Born the eldest of 2 children in 1913, Rosa Louise McCauley was raised on her grandparents' farm in Pine Level, Alabama. As a child, Rosa was exposed to the realities of segregation. She walked to school daily because the elementary school bus system prohibited black students from riding. Rosa later attended the Alabama State Teachers College High School. However, due to both her grandmother and mother's illnesses, she was forced to drop out. At 19, Rosa met Raymond Parks, who worked with Montgomery's NAACP chapter. After their marriage in 1932 and much encouragement, she earned her high school diploma. Rosa joined Raymond in the NAACP, serving as the chapter's secretary and youth leader.
History is peculiar. It places gifted and talented women and men in situations where they must make a choice. The choice she made was on the afternoon of the 1st of December, 1955, on a bus as she was going home from her seamstress job in a department store in Montgomery, Alabama.
Rosa, along with 3 other black passengers, were told to give up their seats to a white male passenger. She refused and was arrested. An all-day bus boycott was organized on the day of Rosa's trial, December 5, 1955, where she was fined $14 and found guilty.
She was a role model for courage in the face of racial injustice. Rosa Parks, through her quiet eloquence, through her commitment both to her faith and to the cause of civil rights and racial equality, was prepared to sacrifice everything, her security, even her life, to fight for what was right, at least her perception of what was justice.
Thousands of people walked, carpooled, and took cabs to work. The boycott lasted 381 days, with a 26-year-old Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. as their leader. Rosa was not the first person to refuse to give up her seat. 2 other women were previously arrested for the same offense. However, it was this quiet 42-year-old who became the face of the Montgomery bus boycott. In 1956, groundbreaking history was made.
The Supreme Court decision by a 9-0 vote supported the civil rights position calling for an end to racial segregation on municipal buses.
Unable to find work, largely due to her political stance, the Parks moved north to Detroit, Michigan, and by 1965, Rosa began to work for Congressman John Conyers until 1988 when she retired. In memory of her husband and in her vision for a better tomorrow, Rosa co-founded the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development, which educates young people on the civil rights movement, gives freedom bus tours, and provides youth with professional guidance. Rosa also worked giving lectures and advocating for social justice. Rosa Parks passed away on October 24, 2005. She was the first woman and second African American to lie in honor at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. Rosa received over 24 honorary doctrines and numerous national and international awards, among them the Medal of Freedom from President Clinton and the Congressional Gold Medal of Honor. Rosa was a grassroots activist for social justice and peace, through her efforts in the civil rights movement to her participation in the anti-apartheid movement for South Africa. Although she never planned on getting arrested, her simple action changed the course of a nation.
I think Mrs. Parks unexpectedly had greatness thrust upon her. I think she was born for it, and I do think she achieved it. You see what I mean? But had she not, of that particular day, said, "I'm not moving, my feet hurt," we would have a different nation and a different world.
Hi, I'm Brandon, and I'm a journeyer. This is the Hannah story continued. One year during the celebration in Shiloh, after they had eaten their ritual meal, Hannah got up and went to the altar of the Lord. Eli the priest was sitting on a chair near the entrance to the Lord's house. Hannah was so sad that she wept and begged, praying to the Lord. She made a promise saying, "Lord, all-powerful, see how brokenhearted I am. Look at me. Don't forget to listen to me. If you will give me a son, I will give him back to you all his life, and he will serve you all his life." As Hannah kept praying, Eli watched her mouth. She was praying in her heart, so her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. Eli thought she was drunk. He said to her, "Stop getting drunk. Throw away your wine." Hannah answered, "Sir, I have not drunk any wine or beer. I am a deeply troubled woman, and I was telling the Lord about all my problems. Don't think I am an evil woman. I have been telling the Lord about my many troubles and how I am very sad." Eli answered, "Go in peace. I send you from here with reassurance. I ask that the God of Israel will give you what you petition for." Hannah said, "I am your servant and the servant of the Lord." Then she left and entered her guest room. She ate with her husband and drank, and then her face was not as sad as it was before. Early the next morning, Elkanah's family got up and worshipped the Lord. Then they went back home to Ramah. Elkanah had sexual relations with Hannah, and the Lord remembered Hannah, and Hannah became pregnant. And in due time she gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, which means name of God. She said, "I named him this because I asked God for him."
Black Lives Matter, reform racism and gigantic systemic injustices, changes to how we do policing and community formation and safety. We're nowhere near done dealing with issues of sexism and abuse and the abuse of the church and the abuse of patriarchy and how it harms men and women, and on and on and on. All of this that our culture is going through may feel like a storm, but all the great spiritual traditions, Jesus's teachings included, make it clear that when you hear about things or can feel things being stirred up, it's an opportunity for something to be born. It's an opportunity for something to grow. It's an opportunity for something to get loose. And there will always be voices that will say to the voices that are raising questions or that are bringing up what feels like chaos or just unrest. I mean, look at that word, right? Unrest. I want rest. I'm unrestful, and I don't like that, right? There are always voices that are going to say, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, shh, 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 shh. You don't know what you're talking about. If you've ever been in a relationship where you were gaslighted, you know what it's like to think, I can see this. Why isn't anybody else seeing this? Or they keep telling me I don't know what I'm talking about, but I do. Don't I? It happens in family systems. It happens in relationships. It happens in work. It happens in the church. It happens in government. When the voices that say, be quiet, you don't know what you're talking about, begin to be drowned out enough by the voices who say, no, we do know what we're talking about, change can happen. And believe it or not, that's what this story at the beginning of 1 Samuel is about. Hannah has been suffering for years. One of the scholars I looked at, a Jewish reading of that story, word for word, phrase for phrase, suggested that Elkanah marries Hannah, and then Hannah doesn't have children, and there's a gap of time, and then Elkanah marries this other person who, as Jacob said earlier, is here to breed children, because in that culture, the central unit of how everybody understood themselves and how everybody behaved and what formed their world was the family. All of the wisdom around how to behave was connected to family and the connection of families and the interlocked families that made up a community. And the idea is that a woman's worth is that she's supposed to have children because that means there's more family. If there's more family, then there's more stability. And if there's more stability, then there's more chance of survival, especially for a small group of people, a small confederation of people in a small strip of fertile land. in the middle of gigantic empires all around. That was a woman's job in that culture, and we still kind of carry that. Can you hear that still? Things like, well, she miscarried, right? She made a mistake in the way she was carrying the baby. She didn't give him children, right? As if the man is the king and the woman is bringing the king a gift, an offering. And it somehow never shows up in the biblical stories that the man has anything to do with whether or not the woman got pregnant. It's just all on her. She was able to give him sons, or the Lord had closed her womb. When Hannah says, after all these years, I'm sad, I'm sad, I'm sad, and Elkanah marries this other person, right? And this other person has baby after baby after baby. The text seems to indicate, as I was saying about these scholars, that there are multiple sons and multiple daughters. So has this been going on for a decade? Longer? Hannah says, this hurts. This hurts. I'm in pain. I don't see that the reason that Hannah is not getting pregnant is because God has closed her womb or the Lord has not let her have children. But that's how Hannah saw it. And if that's how Hannah saw it, then I have to, as a student of the text, take seriously that that's what Hannah is struggling with. And she's struggling with her sense of worth, her sense of value. Plus, she's just pissed off. This is not right. This is not right. When Elkanah, as Jacob says, takes the family as his duty, and he's a man who does the right things and takes this big group of people to Shiloh for the annual festival, and they, take servants, and they stay in this big tabernacle complex where there are priests and animals and merchants, and you can sort of imagine that there is a big complex of people who are all gathered for these special occasions. They bring animals. The animals are sacrificed by the priests and the butchers, who are also priests, the Cohens. And then part of the meat is sacrificed to God, and part of the meat is kept and given back to the family. And you saw that Elkanah, when he brings his whole family, loves Hannah the most, and he feels sad that the Lord has closed her womb. And so he gives her a double portion of blessings, meat, symbolic importance. One of the ways to understand the text is to say that the amount that he gives to Hannah is twice what he gives to Peninnah and all, or Penina, or I keep wanting to call her Panini, like a sandwich. That's wrong. Her and her children, that's their portion. So of course she's sad. How come you love Hannah so much? What's so great about her? She can't give you any children. And when they're at this big public display, this big walkabout where everyone sees everybody and, oh, how have you been and what's going on? Sort of like First Monday when the county judge would be at the courthouse square and people would come in from their farms, and they'd have a farmer's market, and everybody would bring their case to the judge, and people would see how you're doing and what's going on. And this is a once a year affair, and everybody's saying hello to everybody. And this is the opportunity, the text says, when Peninnah says to Hannah, "You're nobody. You're nobody special." And as Jacob said earlier, she's acting out of pain, which I do, which you do, and it is working because it is tearing Hannah up. And Hannah is brokenhearted, and she says to her husband, "I'm in pain," and he says, "No, you're not. You're not in pain. I don't understand what you're talking about. Yes, it's not right. I was supposed to give you children. That's who I'm supposed to be. That's who a woman's supposed to be. A good wife is supposed to be. A good daughter of Israel is supposed to be. And this other wife of yours keeps just rubbing my face in it. I'm in terrible, terrible pain. And he says, oh, well, that can't be right. I mean, wouldn't you rather have me than 10 sons? This is gaslighting. This is saying to Hannah, what you're feeling or thinking doesn't matter. And in the last couple of weeks, are you doing the same thing I'm doing, which is sort of like looking at Facebook and Twitter and the news and then backing back, like don't get too close or you get burned? But I need to look and know what's going on in this culture so that I can somehow be present and maybe be helpful. Now, as a white man, well-educated and privileged, I'm not sure I can really do anything to be helpful except listen and advocate. Me explaining is not helpful. And Elkanah explains to Hannah why she's being unreasonable, and that's not what she needs. So she goes to the temple. It's not the temple in Jerusalem. This is the generation before that. Samuel, as in 1 Samuel, who is the little boy that Hannah's going to become pregnant with, will become the prophet who will grow up and then anoint God's first kings of the United Kingdom of Israel. This is before that. This is a tabernacle. Maybe it's a tent or maybe it's a building that's reminiscent of the tent that God was in the sojourn through the wilderness a few hundred years before that as the people left Egypt. You know, in the Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston. Or the Prince of Egypt, the cartoon version. Val Kilmer, not only playing Moses, but also the voice of God. It's good. The thing that happens then is that Hannah goes to the tabernacle, the place of worship, the whatever this place is, and she just says, that's it. That's it. That's it. If you have not this moment, that's it. That is it. I have had it. If you have not had that moment, you probably should. This is the moment, this is the cycle, this is the season, this is the juncture, this is the crossroads where something has to change. Enough is enough. That's enough. I've taken enough. I've seen enough. I think that we're experiencing that. I think George Floyd's story and our response to it feels like that. But there have been many, many, many moments like this, not only in our relatively short history as a nation, but in all of the nations of the world, where at some point that's it. That's enough. Power is being used to hurt people or out of corruption one too many times, however much was required to say, that's it, I'm not going to take anymore. But it also happens in our relationships. It also happens in that moment when somebody says, that's it, I'm leaving, I can't take this anymore. Maybe it's when someone has the courage and the hope to finally say to their abuser, I'm not going to stay and be abused anymore. Then they do the terrifying thing that requires so much bravery, which is to leave. Maybe it's when somebody says, I don't think I can believe that anymore. That's just not true for me anymore. And I'm going to do the really terrifying thing, which is to say, I don't think so. I don't think so. Hannah goes to God and says, that's it. I have had it. And I think about Rosa Parks, whom we saw in the video a little bit ago, who just said, that's it. I've had it. And you saw that Rosa Parks, sitting in the white section of the bus in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955 and not getting up, that was not out of nowhere. This is a part of a strategy that a group of people have and that she has about how to fight against the oppression of the Jim Crow South against African American people. But I mean, there is also the real issue. I'm tired. I'm not going to stand up and let a white man sit here. I'm tired. And I hear Hannah say, I'm tired. That's enough. That is enough. Eli, the priest who works there at Shiloh, and Shiloh is an important center for worship in that part of Israel. It's where the Ark of the Covenant is, like in the Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's where the Ark of the Covenant is. And Eli looks at this woman who's, I don't know, swaying. The text says, right, that her eyes are closed and her lips are moving, but she's not saying anything. He just figures she's drunk. It's a long festival. What can I say? It's Coachella. Do you know what I mean? It goes on. It's South by. It goes on for days and days and days. And so here's this woman who is drunk or something or weaving around, and he says, woman, you need to get out of here. What's wrong with you? You need to quit drinking in church. And she does another beautiful thing. She's so great. She says, no. What you're telling me about me is not true. It's not the truth about me. What you're saying about me is a reflection of who you are and what you expect. I'm praying. I am here. I have come to have it out with God. God, this is not okay. I have been faithful. I have waited. I have been here. I have been a good woman. And this is not okay in my heart. And this is a really beautiful moment, I think. Eli, the person of privilege, the person with the power in this situation, listens. He actually listens to the person who's in pain, to the person that he has all of the power over. And he just says, wait, let me hear what you're saying for real about what you're feeling. And she just says, I've been pouring out my heart to God. I'm in so much pain. My heart's broken. Please, I'm just asking God not to forget about me. God, don't turn away from me. And if you know what that's like, then you know that that place is deep, deep, deep. And I think our culture is experiencing some deep, deep grief work. And maybe you need to do some deep, deep grief work. There's so much of what Jesus does with people many centuries later, 1,000 years later. So much of what Jesus does with people is to be with them in their pain. What do you need? What do you want? What's hurting? Eli gives up his place of privilege where he's going to be in charge and tell this woman she doesn't know what she's talking about. And instead he listens, and then he says, I'm just going to send you with peace and bless you. I think that God has heard you. That's what I hear in here. I think God has heard you. I think that God has heard you. And I bless you. And she says, I just want to help God. And that's when it says she goes back to the house or the rented spot or the tent or whatever it is that her family is staying in during this festival. She eats, she spends time with her husband, and her face changes. She's no longer sad. Well, that's because she's pregnant. Nope, she's sure not. The text says that happens much later. And in due time, after going back home and having sexual relations with her husband, then she gets pregnant. In the fullness of that time. That's not when her face changes. Her face changes when she finally says, that is it. I have had it. I will not be silenced. I will say what I want, what I need, what I feel. And somebody listens and says, I hear you. And I think God hears you. And I bless you. Hannah does have a baby, a little boy named Samuel, and she ends up bringing that little boy back to this priest, Eli, in this place, Shiloh. And Samuel grows up there. So Hannah has the thing that she begged for and railed for and yelled for and wept for, and then she doesn't even keep it. It wasn't about keeping it. It was about speaking it and owning it and releasing it. So I don't know where you are today around all the things that are swirling around outside of us or maybe inside of us, and I don't know what you're feeling with the people that you're sheltering in place with, and I don't know what you're feeling about your own anxieties or your own fears. Maybe you're having a "that's it" moment with God. Maybe you're not. Maybe, I promise you, somebody near you is, and they need somebody to be like Eli and to listen. And just listen. And if you are telling people, well, here's why you shouldn't be so upset, you need to shut up. If you're telling people, well, let me tell you about what your deal is, let me tell you about what your problem is, you need to be quiet now. It's time to listen to the people who need to be heard. And if you're somebody who needs to speak up, it's time. Now. Hannah, get up.
Okay, journeyers, we're going to do a little exercise. So I'm going to ask you to find yourself seated, put your feet on the ground, feel planted, and close your eyes if you feel comfortable. We're just going to take a deep breath in and let it out. A deep breath in and let it out. And as we continue to breathe, we're going to reflect on our characters. But first, we're going to start in our bodies, and we're going to do a quick scan and see if there's anything that's uncomfortable. Maybe we want to move around a bit. Maybe we need to roll our head. Maybe move our ankles, get comfortable in our seat. We're going to take another deep breath in and out. And as we sit in this place here, and we stay in our bodies, we're going to take our minds to Elkanah. Who is Elkanah? Elkanah in our story is the dad, he's the father, the husband. He's the man who wants it all, wants to be it all for those he loves. How are we like Elkanah? How do we also want to be it all and have it all? Continuing to breathe, we move to Peninnah. Peninnah is a person who acts in anger, who hurts other people, but not for no reason. She hurts because she's hurt. As we think of Peninnah, let's think of ways in which we're hurt. Take a deep breath in and out. And Hannah. Hannah fights for justice. Hannah stands up so her voice can be heard. But that doesn't come without weeping and pain. I bet many of us feel this way right now. We're in a place where all we know to do is to cry out to God. As we sit with Hannah, notice if there's any part in you that's tensing up. any part that feels uncomfortable, and sit with it. And let's take a deep breath in and out. And as we come back into our bodies, we bring these characters with us. Their pains, their struggles, their joys, their realness. Let's do another body scan, reminding ourselves that we are grounded, that we are part of creation, and that we're exactly where we need to be. One last deep breath in and out. Amen.
So as we go from this gathering, wherever you are, into wherever you can get to, in the midst of the unrest and the protests and the struggle on many sides of many issues, I invite you to take with you the thing that we quote here often, which is what Cinderella says: have courage and be kind. That may sound trite or small. It's not. Having courage is big. And caring about people and having compassion is big. Being compassionate for what people are going through in their struggles and listening is big. And also having the courage not just to listen, but to speak up is big. So have courage to listen and to speak, and be kind. You are so loved, journeyers, and all the friends of Journey. Go into this week.
You got to hold